G'day guys, welcome to another episode of Euro Mining News. Today I'm sitting with Jason Beckton, who's the Managing Director of Prospech Limited. Now these guys own a rare earth element project in Finland, which has just had a resource, it's an initial inferred resource wrapped around it. So welcome to the show, Jason.
Thank you, John, and thanks for your interest of Euro Mining News.
Thanks yourself. Yeah, it's been great following you, and it's been a good bit of interest that's kicking around in the rare earth space, especially within Finland. Now,
Well, from our point of view, you've done the better analysis on what's happening there, good and bad, but so far mostly good.
definitely, yeah. I mean, trying to cover both sides of the coin, but I guess jumping straight into it, you most recent results, you brought some more historic sampling results from the old core that was at Korsnäs out last week. Can you run us through what those grades were and where they kind of sit within the resource?
So they're in without going through them verbatim, they're in the central and southern sector. There's no doubt that we got very lucky, or not lucky, but it was well-planned drilling that we did, but most of the drilling is historic. So importantly, none of it was sampled for rare earths. So I don't want investors to think these are old numbers. These are freshly minted numbers from an ISO lab, ALS in Sweden, and we get those numbers regularly now. So we're still owed about 600 odd samples, and they'll come out shortly as well, probably in a similar order of magnitude in the central and southern sectors where the old holes existed. The northern sector needs a lot of drilling. The exploration target growth from the resource, we'll touch on that, I guess, sort of dictates that we're focused mainly in the south, but the northern zone's wide open as well.
Great. So I guess jumping onto that, to give a background of the Korsnäs project, because yeah, like you say, this was historic core, but it was drilling for a completely different commodity previously. Could you just give us a quick background of Korsnäs?
Yeah, so the mine was discovered by field prospecting by a famous geologist or prospector named Gottfried Pistol, and he even enlisted the local school kids on weekends going out and picking up float. As you know, there's a lot of till and cover, and to some extent you can see that with the photograph I've used as a background over their mine once they'd started. You can see it's only about 4 or 5 meters of cover. So they used to pick up lead and rare earths, pebbles. They knew about the rare earths early on. They called it lanthanide. But back then, in the late or early 60s, in the discovery period, they were focused on lead, which was more payable, lanthanide, so to speak, or rare earths, as it were. They weren't that valuable in that time. So I don't judge their development effort on when they made the discovery of Korsnäs, which was one plum, if you like, or one zone of high-grade lead on one of the structures. Subsequently, make a long story short, they started the mine on the lead, and as they did that, like all mines, they ran a concurrent parallel exploration effort to try to find more lead. But as they went on, it must have been quite heartbreaking because they drilled nearly 500 diamond holes and mainly found rare earth zones in parallel and along strike, for our shareholders' benefit, I guess, and Finland's benefit. But importantly, they had the foresight to store all that core, or the government did. So, and when they made notes, but like me, when I was a young geologist in Broken Hill in 1992, you don't sample base metals if you can't see it visually. So most of the core that was available for us to sample is in fact whole core, unsampled. And so these rare earth numbers that we're transmitting to the market now, which we're reporting more and more broad zones as we sample more and more of the hanging wall and footwall and learn about it. Because one thing that certainly in the past they did not do was put significant academic or technical effort into the rare earths. Fair enough. Wasn't payable. But what we've found is a core, if you like, phosphate zone, apatite, and then there's envelopes around that of allanite, and that can be high grade as well. So we sample the entire zone now, and hence the thicknesses that I think took the market a little bit by surprise on Friday the 7th. But anyway, just to round it out, behind me there's a view. You can see the glinting lead, I guess, in the face of the ore zone in the pit behind me. from the late 60s. And that was high-grade rare earths, and some of the recent intercepts were from that area that we released at depth, unmined. And really, you can see from the scale of the fences or the buildings or the shaft facility, true width about 20 metres. So we shouldn't be surprised by these thick zones that we're reporting now. And importantly, shareholders should be aware they're in parallel as well. Back to you, John.
Yeah, so yeah, the mineralization is directly associated to the lead, I guess. So the drilling efforts weren't in vain. I guess it was drilled
No,
out in a
they
pretty
would find little specks of lead here and there, but the academic people or government geologist people, I think correctly, have picked up on the fact that the rare earth zones that filled these structures were much earlier than the later pulse of lead that occurred, but it exploited the same structures like it happens all the time in these deposits, or a crack in your wall at home. Liquid exploits a structure, it keeps following that weakness. So the lead event is in fact probably later, or certainly later, from a recent excellent masters that was done by a young man on the project. And what we know is the lead is very sporadic, whereas the rare earths, and that hence our resource estimate had reasonable confidence to be JORC in December, the rare earths are reasonably continuous. So of course we assay for the lead and we take note of it, but it's not statistically significant outside the only plumb they found of it at the open pit.
Okay, fantastic. Well, jumping into the resource estimate then, yeah, you recently, in December last year, you put the inferred resource out of 7.1 million tonnes at 1.08% TREO. Now, you were saying that it is quite a wide envelope there. You're getting kind of, one of the results you brought out last week was 21 metres at 2.5%. Could you run us through just, I guess, a brief background of what's going on in this resource estimate geology-wise, and how you went about getting it?
So if listeners or viewers could visualize their sub-parallel diagonal zones, we're not using any graphics now, but basically they're repeated over, it seems to be almost a harmonic of about every 60 metres there's another zone. As you can see in the image behind me, is dipping about 45 to 50 degrees, sometimes 60 degrees to the west. And basically we just step back and drill towards the east and drill them at an orthogonal angle. Importantly, in the resource, we didn't include some tonnes that didn't have enough drilling nearby, and then some of these new results will improve that. So the resource will grow, possibly in grade, but certainly in tonnes, and particularly to the south. We need more drilling to grow it to the north, but the south and the pit area are wide open. We were very conservative with the resource estimate, and that if there wasn't drilling within 40 metres, it didn't even make inferred. And other competitor companies for similar commodities elsewhere would have pushed the block mold through the whole thing. But we wanted all the data to come back, and that should all be in by the end of March, all the remaining historic sampling that we've done for now.
And you're going to be updating that resource as you go, as results come back?
Yeah, it'll be continuous and just a growth story from now on, not only drill results, metallurgy as well. We've got 3 met test programs underway, because some of the resource, obviously, we need to underpin with metallurgy and to graduate it to indicated, a preferred category for confidence and investment. There's certainly a case for more drilling. We do want to wait for some more metallurgical work, and that'll guide where we do that drilling. But there's obvious growth drilling to be done to the north of the tailings dam, which in itself is an exploration target due for graduation to inferred resource when we get some metallurgy back from that shortly.
Yeah, absolutely. So jumping onto the metallurgy side, you've also got a EU REM hub grant of 450,000 euros, I believe, to go into that metallurgy test work. How is that going, and what are the results looking like so far? Have you got any recovery rates? Those type of questions.
Yeah, well, the consortia organised out of Helsinki called REM Hub, linked to the EU, which sourced the funding for the metallurgical and development work, not necessarily drilling, but metallurgical development work. That's fine because we're doing plenty of that. It's very unusual at this early stage for a project like this, arguably, to get funding at inferred stage. You'll never see it in Australia, where they prefer funding to go towards plant construction when there's no supply. So here they know in the EU that supply is the issue, not building yet another processing facility. So we are flat out advancing that metallurgical work on the tailings dam, which I alluded to earlier, but also the hard rock vein zones. And to that end, when we drilled in August, and myself and another geologist from Slovakia, Jacob Bukovina, cut the core so that half would go to destructive metallurgical work and half went to the lab. And we've released those results prior to the resource. But importantly, the destructive work happened after some non-destructive laser work, which we'll talk to the market about in due course, to identify which mineral phases exactly, because it's quite the mineralogist's, I guess, paradise looking at this stuff. But we have to do that characterization work. It's quite normal. Everyone does it before the MET design program. But very quickly the program was designed, and so it's underway at GTK Mintec. The government facility for metallurgical processing. That's the destructive work after the non-destructive work's been done. And importantly, separately, but they all communicate with each other, including with REM Hub, who like to see what's happening with the money. We're doing test work on the tailings storage facility material up at mining school, Oulu. So we're going as fast as we can on the test work. I know shareholders would like things to be reported as soon as they come to hand, which they will be.
Okay, great. So yeah, you've got the tailings storage facility. That's obviously going to be a free dig scenario. You're not going to be needing to blast that. Would that be the first thing you put through to process if in the circumstance this thing gets off the ground?
Yeah, I mean, that's important. That's important to say that if it gets off the ground, obviously we need to complete feasibility studies, etc. But the vision, I guess, of the local municipality, for example, allowing us to clear the vegetation from this 50-year-old tailings dump. So as you can imagine, there's some regrowth vegetation, which they've then used for heating the Korsnäs municipality. The drilling program was completed, but we wanted to wait for funding to send the metallurgy work off. But yeah, I would imagine and we have put the exploration target out. It's a bit under 1 million tonnes of free dig at about 0.5% rare earths. I would imagine some smaller modular flotation plant will be built at Korsnäs in due course, subject to the feasibility work, because we're looking a long way into the future now in the disclaimer part of things. But the point is, maybe not that long, because it doesn't take much to mine a flat-lying body, which is tabular, which has already been mined, and to process it. It's just a matter of sourcing, and we've done this in the past in Bolnisia, in the former Soviet Republic in Georgia, is use a second-hand plant and just push it through and start to make money.
Absolutely.
And importantly for the EU, make rare earth concentrates.
Yeah, which is of huge importance for Finland. I guess they're turning into not turning into, but they're very mining friendly jurisdiction by what I'm seeing online. However, I guess there's a difference between the federal being involved and being supportive, and the local side. How is the local municipalities and landholders reacting to your project?
Well, just very positive and supportive, really. Like the tailings drill program, which I used as an example, was almost driven by the municipality. Like there was municipality tree cutting machines, municipality excavators working. We tried to send an invoice. Don't worry, we got the wood. But also the regional Ostrobothnian government out of Vasa, the nearby city, which we use as a commuting hub as well. A lot of interest there, and we speak to the development people there, including at Vasek, who promote local investment. They're building a battery facility or a facilitation industrial zone near the airport at Vasa, so we want to be involved with that as well. We'll attend the Vasa Energy Week in early March, which is soon, and or late March, I should say. So are being closely watched, which is fair enough when you're operating. In the newspaper about the questions are normally along the lines of how many people you employ, which we have to obviously be careful before things are green lit. But so far, no red flags. I've never worked in an easier jurisdiction, to be honest. And it's not just because I'm currently working there. It's a pleasure to work there. It's not a hardship assignment, put it that way.
Great, great. That's becoming ever more important on the ESG front. So that's good to hear. So I guess jumping a little bit deeper into the resource estimate, you said that there was a exploration target for the tailing storage facility sitting at kind of 0.5%, but you've also got an extra exploration target that you've set out on your hard rock in situ. Could you run us through, I guess, why didn't that get included into the inferred resource, and what's your plans to try grow this thing from here?
So investors who know me know I'm quite aggressive with reporting and not conservative, but correctly we have balance on our board, and John Levings did the resource, and we didn't want to include even zones between inferred resource zones in plan view because of the fact that the assays were pending. So the growth is in some sections of the resource, or sectors, I should say, automatic. I think it'll grow in tons. I don't think necessarily it'll grow that much in grade. It might in a few areas, but I want to manage expectations on that front, even though we're very happy with the inferred resource grade, obviously. But the tonnage piece to the south, there'll be a lot of growth there. As you alluded to, there's 10 to 12 million tons in the exploration target for the hard rock. So the job is to convert that to inferred, basically, to promote it to the next level of confidence, which is inferred. While that's happening, some sections might also be, and this requires the metallurgy results, so it's all kind of a virtuous circle, I guess. You need the metallurgy to promote it to indicated as well. And once something's indicated, you can start thinking about feasibility studies, etc. So it's all linear. I don't want the investors to take away that we're very busy on too many fronts. There's just one objective, and that is to grow the reserve balance. And when I say reserve, that means economic studies in parallel.
Okay. So in saying that, I guess you've still got over 400 historic samples that are waiting to come back from the lab. Are you also going to be rolling your own drill rig back in again this year, or has that been
I think
decided?
it looks like it's going to be May, probably. We just want to get all that metallurgy sorted out because it'll help plan where we drill more a little bit. Subject to rig availability. But yeah, there is a budget, a nominal budget to drill out the summer. This part of the world, unlike a lot of Scandinavia, you can drill in the summer. We drilled in August, in the height of the summer last year, and it went fairly well, thanks to our friends at Arctic Drilling. So we think, the plan is a lot of news flow from holes that were drilled for us in the past, and the resource, the next iteration of that, which is growth. And then sort of amongst that, there'll be metallurgy updates. As soon as they come to hand, I want to leave them. We don't warehouse results strategically and try. I've been a managing director on and off on the Australian Stock Exchange, and I've worked on the Toronto Exchange since 2007, and I know that warehousing result is a pet hate of investors. We don't do that. The government, of course, in Finland deserves to know what's going on with its minerals. We lease them, so we'll know them. We'll report matters as they come to hand.
Okay. So it sounds like there's going to be obviously plenty of news flow coming from Finland with Korsnäs. I guess a natural segue then is you've also got gold assets down in Slovakia. Did you want to give viewers a background of what the project is and what's happening there?
So Slovakia is what first attracted us to the EU. Our wheelhouse, we've delivered returns for shareholders in the past working on what are called epithermal gold deposits, which can have high grades and are amenable to traditional processing routes, quite simplistic. So we managed to do a deal with a group called EMED, who now focus in Spain. and are good friends of ours. And we inherited a team, a database, equipment, offices in 2015. And we run it at a fairly low ebb because we didn't actually list in 2020 on the stock exchange. That's when we started drilling targets properly. Importantly, we mitigate risk for shareholders by trying to work only on brownfields assets, as you see behind me at Korsnäs, and it's the same in Slovakia. We're operating adjacent to a mine that is producing 10 million euros a year in profit. It's not ours, sadly, but we're adjacent to it, and we're drilling the structures next to it. We've also got an exciting project called Korsnäs in the south, project that I was on the rig for at Zemplin in the east. We do have some copper, tungsten, even antimony optionality, but the focus of value is gold, silver. And that'll compete with Finland. It's running second at the moment in terms of spend, but we'll probably look at drilling there as well. If not May, then maybe June.
Okay, so yeah, it's quite a balanced portfolio then, I guess, with the gold, silver, and having the rare earths involved. So plenty to.
Just sorry to quickly interrupt. I think gold's important for juniors because it's not a commodity anybody can control. Rare earths obviously aren't anymore either because they're going up despite a certain country's efforts to keep the price down. They're increasing. So yeah, you're right. Just sorry jumping in there, but gold is critical to juniors in my view.
Definitely, I'm seeing a lot of other juniors that previously didn't have gold assets getting into them just because of that. The price just keeps going up, and it seems to be such a good asset to have. So, completely understandable. I guess one other thing I forgot to ask before, as far as Korsnäs, is just, and it's an important view for investors, is what are your NdPr ratios and heavy rare earth ratios looking like?
Yeah, so it seems to be running on average about 25%. In the higher grade zones, but over a global average of the deposit, it looks like it's about 22%, which is significant. And, according to metal or geometallurgists, is what you want. You don't want under sort of 15%. Importantly, we are hitting in the high grade zones terbium numbers commonly exceeding 20 ppm, which is what has all the Brazilian rare earth people jumping up and down when they average that. So we think there's a dysprosium benefit as well, which is commonly above 20 as well. So in terms of grab bag basket per metre, you don't want to say it's not a JORC comment, but importantly, they're not bereft of heavy rare earths. We know that lanthanum and cerium are 100 times less valuable than neodymium and praseodymium. So as a basket, the dominant value piece is that NdPr ratio, which you alluded to, and the superpower on price is terbium and dysprosium, and that's why we reported those as well.
Great, yeah. I mean, it's not all about TREO, even though a lot of companies do say that. So that's good to hear that the heavies and NdPr ratio is there as well. Now, is there anything else you wanted to say in rounding this out, Jason?
Oh, look, I just think that we're a solution. Investors are exposed to basically, if you see a need, fill a need. In our case, there's minimal rare earth supply in the EU. Like I just saw over the weekend, it was reported 100% of heavy rare earths that are being used in the EU are being supplied from China, and 98% of light rare earths. So we are filling more than a gap. We're starting a new supply regime, I hope, in due course, in an industrial part of Europe where you don't have to worry about shipping, things like that. We know there's processing facilities in other parts of Europe, including nearby Estonia. So the key point is we're filling a need. So this is not a project that will be switched, the lights will switch off if there's some sort of wobble in prices. This is a project that is a small but important buffer to that 100% reliance on a third party.
I think you hit the nail on the head there with the fact that it is of great importance for EU to keep the lights on. So I'm very excited about it.
You're welcome to visit, by the way. You're welcome to visit.
I'd love to. I'm going to come over to the conference in Finland later in the year, so I will hopefully be able to spend a couple of extra days and pop down if you're about.
And the same applies to all investors.
Great. All right. Okay. Thanks, Jason. So we're looking forward to some a big year of results, I guess, out of Prospech, and look forward to talking to you again next time, Jason.
Thank you, John. Appreciate your interest, and thank you, Euro Mining News.
Cheers. See you later.